We're just on 10, so I might kick off. There'll probably be a few people that join over the next few minutes, but oh, there's Papinda coming in now. So I guess just to introduce the session. So for those of you on the call that haven't had the chance of meeting me before, Ian White, I'm the director of our customer advisory and support practice, and the App Factory, which we're going to be sort of discussing today, is something that falls under my practice. Sorry, all these admission bings are a little bit distracting. I've also got Meg Santos, our Director of Operations, that's joined me today. Our lovely Nicole had a last minute appointment pop up, so I've wrangled Meg in to help me out today. Super excited about today's session. So this is the second one of these that we've run. The first one, we had a few technical difficulties, which unfortunately prevented some of the people joining in. So I think some of those people are coming in on today's session, and we'll be recording today's session as well. So if you need a copy of it, we can share that afterwards. There's 3 people waiting for admission. Meg, if you just want to go over the. Do you have the rights to admit,
No,
or is it
I
only me?
actually don't see it. Sorry.
Okay,
so
that's all right. I'll just admit them. So yeah, another 3 people coming in. All right. So what we're going to cover off today is talking about App Factory and where it fits in the overall sort of enterprise service management strategy. We'll then go into an overview of what App Factory is. We've got an example that we're going to use, which is just around travel services to show a real life kind of example. And then lastly, we're actually going to build an application. So we've got later on in the session, we'll be keen to get some input from everybody on the call about some example services, and then we'll see what kind of ideas that we have, and then we'll pick one. And by the end of this session, you should be fully aware of what App Factory is and how it's helping support our customers in that sort of enterprise service management and digital transformation. And we'll actually have an example built as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I guess to paint the picture, and I think the next few slides are quite important about giving you guys a bit of context about the conversations that we're having with our customers around enterprise service management, and ultimately what we've seen in the industry that's led to us putting this out to market to assist customers where there was potentially a bit of white space around some of the services that they needed to get on board to the ServiceNow platform. So I think, if I was to look at the last 12 months, I've noticed a massive pivot in the conversations I'm having with my customers about enterprise service management. And I think ultimately with this kind of post-COVID world and how employees and customers and whoever it might be that needs to interact with services, that has become far more difficult with this new way of working, with remote working and a distributed workforce. So the sort of digital transformation journey and having a look at a common approach to enterprise service management, although it's been spoken about, I think a lot of people are sort of suddenly taking that quite seriously. And we've seen a massive focus on, I guess, 2 different lenses that we see. One being sort of that cost reduction, but more so we're seeing the drive to increase productivity and also to increase user experience. So some figures there around the impact that has, but I think we're all aware that at times it can be very difficult for people to know where to go to get something done. So sometimes it's about knowing the right person, or sometimes it's about knowing the right inbox to send something to, or you're not sure how to get something done, but then somebody sends you a SharePoint link and you can go and fill in that form. So that overall experience obviously has a huge impact on productivity, and ultimately productivity then has an impact on businesses achieving their goals. But also that time spent comes with a lot of frustration from an employee experience point of view. So what we've been sort of helping customers with is moving things. One part of it is obviously getting this stuff out of paper, getting this stuff out of inboxes and Excel spreadsheets and everything, and thinking about a common approach, but building up almost like an e-profile, right? So I'll just build this slide out. We often start the conversation and our customers are like, yeah, look, we've just got employees. That's all we need to consider. But there's actually quite a few personas as you start to drill in, right? So there could be executive employees, or there could be contingent workers, or alumni, or contractors. And these different personas consume different services based off what they need to do within the business, or how long they've been there, or whatever. The traditional approach that we've seen around this enterprise service management is it tends to become a function-centric service model, as opposed to more of a user-centric model. So by defining these services and what that user experience would look like, and knowing, helping our customers define, I want to know blah, or I want to do blah, or I need help to do blah, then we can start to actually link the services and kind of detach that functional silo service model and focus more on the services that those users want to consume. And the example that I'll get to kind of later is, an employee might need to consume a number of travel services, and those travel services might actually be delivered by more than one function within the business. And then also the other thing that comes into play is ultimately then the transactional system of record. So ultimately we're starting to map out that user experience level, what that engagement looks like, down through your your layer of action, and what those workflows are, whether they're manual tasks for people to do, or whether that's ultimately looking at sort of automation and orchestration, but then also considering the transactional systems of record as well. So in the travel example, there might be maybe an executive is able to get a travel credit card, for example, which could be a finance function rather than a travel function, but ultimately they don't care. They're going traveling, they want a travel card, don't care who fulfills it. And that could rely on some sort of transactional system to understand, do they currently have one? Is it active? What's the current limit? Do they need to increase the limit? If they do, who might need to actually approve that? So when we work with customers to do that, what we tend to run into is, there's some amazing out of the box applications available on the platform there that have a lot of capability around IT service management, HR service delivery, so on and so forth. But often there's other things that exist in corporations that are, out there riddled all over the organization. And those things tend to live in shared mailboxes, Excel spreadsheets. We've seen fax machines, Lotus Note servers, SharePoint is a big one at the moment. And there's not always a place for those to fit. So what starts to happen is, well, we really want to get them onto ServiceNow, but do we want to go and run 100, 200 projects? Do we want to be engaging these teams and trying to understand, what their requirements are? Is the benefit there to actually go and do that exercise? there's like 500 of these things. That's just going to take us forever. Like, don't really know where to start, right? And what we realized over time is if you had the ability to offer some, case management capabilities very easily on the platform, then you can onboard a lot of these areas quite quickly, and I guess scoop up all those use cases that are out there in the organization to bring them in to have one common services model with the stuff that our customers already might have in ITSM and whatnot, but you can then have a consistent approach to all the other services in the organization, and ultimately heading to the goal that so many customers want to get to of one place for service, right? To ultimately make it easy for their employees and increase that improve that employee experience. So I touched on a couple of pain points that we've heard, but it's always good to refer to some that we've seen in real life. We're talking to a lot of customers that have like literally hundreds, sometimes thousands of shared inboxes, like all over the organization, that do all kinds of different things and go off into all kinds of different black holes. A lot of customers with SharePoint. So talking with a lot of customers that have on-prem SharePoint or the one in the top left, that customer has 1,000 SharePoint forms that they need to get onto ServiceNow in a 12-month period because their licensing is about to double, and that's becoming cost prohibitive. A lot of customers with things in SAP, like business apps in SAP and whatnot, that they need an efficient and effective way of actually getting these out of whatever those legacy platforms are, or out of those spreadsheets, or moving away from paper and fax, and doing that in a really efficient and effective way. So what we've done is we've actually developed, there's kind of two components to it. One is a level of automation, so that, and we'll actually demo that today. So we can actually build an application that provides case management capability, along with a rich agent workspace experience, service catalog, mobile app, a high level of transparency and reporting within about a minute. So the automation is a big part of it, but the other part of it is also the approach and methodology and the way that we come at this. So rather than and we've seen this, right? You go and meet with a team that's worked in an inbox for 8 years, and you go, well, we're going to get you on the platform because it's going to help you be more efficient and allow you to manage your work and make decisions about, your team and whatnot. What would be your requirements, right? And these teams are like, I don't know what ServiceNow is. I've been working in inbox for 8 years. It kind of works. Don't really know why, we need to do this. Help me understand what my requirements would be, because I don't know what I don't know. And what you find is once you actually, drill into it and work your way down, a lot of those teams are just after case management, right? They need to receive work, prioritize work, assign work, understand SLAs, start to get transparency around their work. So if all these teams are after the same thing, then why can't we have something like, why are we wasting time trying to understand these requirements that are ultimately the same for a lot of these teams, and why are we building those things over and over again? So seemed somewhat insane. So we thought, if we automate all that, we can have a usable application that provides what I would call an MVP, or a base level case management capability very quickly. You can get that team on board to the platform really quickly. You can kill off the inboxes and delete the spreadsheets and decommission the SharePoint forms and give them a starting point to then mature from. So rather than spending sort of, circa 6-8 weeks sort of building out an application just to get them on board, you can have a whole lot of capability immediately, and then your time to value is happening a lot sooner, and they can get in and start using that and start to learn how, oh, okay, well, now that we're tracking this, if we had a field where we could put this information, that would save us an hour a day, or that would actually give us visibility of, cost by, a dollar amount per cost center, or whatever it might be, right? So that continuous improvement starts to kick in, and you start to see that maturity increase and additional capability come in, and we've seen customers start to, excuse me, increase their level of automation, but then also start to stitch these together and understand, cross-functional impacts between teams, and start to understand supply chains within their organization. So all those kind of areas there, are all things that pretty much every team that needs case management is going to need, right? Your reporting and dashboards and SLAs and all that usual stuff. So we've taken about 20 days worth of development and automated that and brought that down to 1 minute. So that's where a significant amount of the ROI exists. And where we're targeting is really what I've just sort of gone through, is that baseline or that MVP state, but with a view that that's not it. You don't just get onboarded and you stop, but you've got your domain in there that you can actually start to mature and get more and more improvements, and that's where you really start to unlock a lot of value in understanding all the areas of your business, right? A couple of examples there, but we'll go through a bit of a demo, so I won't sort of linger on that. And I guess just to sort of talk briefly about the process is, again, it's very flipped on its head, and there's a lot of artifacts and whatnot that we've set up to move through this process very quickly to go, okay, this is sort of an off-the-shelf capability that you can get. The focus is getting you on as quickly as possible, but the focus is also making sure that team is feeling comfortable with the change that they're about to go through, moving from working in inbox for many years to suddenly being on a platform like ServiceNow. How do we make sure that we automate all the stuff that's repeatable, but spend the time actually doing training with this team, making sure they're feeling comfortable prior to go live, and what are all the artifacts and whatnot that can support that process happening really quickly. And you'll see as we go through, we've had a big focus on making it easy for the agent to use. And we're typically seeing sort of 1 to 2 weeks we can have from being introduced to a team to having them on board and working in the platform, trained up, ready to go. Sort of around that 2-week period, rather than, your typical sort of project approach, which could be sort of circa 6 to 8 weeks or potentially even more.
Sorry to cut you off, Ian. We're just having a bit of background noise, so just invite people to go on mute if possible. Yep, carry on.
Yep, I might mute. I can see Rod and Simon not muted. I'm just going to mute you guys. There we go. Cool. That's a bit better.
Perfect. Yep.
So to sort of paint a picture, this particular example is one I like to use. This particular customer had 32 inboxes managing the order to cash, a sales quote form living in SharePoint, and then some shared inboxes for supporting functions as well. So what we did with these guys was and an Excel account list where that was basically where everybody jumped in and marked whether they'd actually sent invoices and whether customers had paid. So we actually spent some time with this organization and understood what these 32 inboxes were doing. There was 3 or 4 times people were printing things and scanning them back in to the next inbox. So what we did is went, all right, well, what's the bottleneck in this process? Let's start there. Let's pick that, get it on board and see what happens, right? So we onboarded the first inbox, which was the bottleneck of their order to cash process. And we actually discovered that work was being turned around very quickly in that area. it was actually them waiting on other areas of the business that was slowing them down. So we onboarded all the other functions and then stitched them together so that they could see exactly where their order to cash was being held up and by who, so they knew exactly where to go and push things along. So some of the cool things that came out of this was, reduction of lost payments. There was this poor person, 3 weeks of every month, they would count emails in the inboxes to put reports together. Like, I think I would probably shoot myself, but we freed up 3 weeks of that person's time, to work on far more valuable work. And they saw a 6-week reduction in order to cash, right? So, from an order going out to cash coming through the door, there was a massive decrease in that time, which was pretty amazing to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in, just show you a little bit of an example with the travel one. What I'd love people to do, and Meg, I'll get you to pop the link and the number in the chat. So I've set up just a bit of a word cloud. I'd love people to go in there and just, if you've got ideas, right, where I know that's managed in a shared inbox in my business, or like, God, if I could onboard that'd be really cool. Chuck some examples in there. And what I'd like to do is have a look at that word cloud, and let's pick one and use that as the example that we onboard. Any questions, I guess, just there before I jump out and go through some show and tell? I think we're all good. Do feel free to put questions in the chat if something pops in your mind and you don't want to sort of jump in the middle of things. By all means, pop it in the chat. We should have plenty of time to cover off those questions. Excuse my frog in my throat as well. We were out last night at a very noisy venue and spent the night yelling. So what I've got here is basically, essentially a shared services portal, right? So the focus of what we do is to bring these things on board, but we don't want to go, okay, well, we're going to onboard a travel area and there'll be a travel portal, and we'll onboard office supplies area and there'll be an office supplies portal. We're really looking at getting these functions on board and publishing all the services in a user-centric way to a common shared services portal, right? So the example I was sort of referring to earlier is, although we've onboarded a travel team, and we'll show you what the travel sort of application looks like in a second, we're trying to move our customers away from this traditional, like, I have to know what department to go to, as opposed to, well, I need to get a hire car, or I need to request, domestic or international travel. Novel idea at the moment, but and then maybe I need the example we referred to before is a travel credit card, right? Now, all three of these might go to a travel function, or maybe the hire car and domestic and international travel might go to the travel area, but the card might be managed by a finance area, something commonly that we see with customers. So from a user perspective, I don't really care. I don't want to have to think, I'm going overseas next month for work. I've got to go into the travel area to do 2/3 of it, and then go to the finance service catalog to go and sort out the credit card. Don't care. Like, this is all related to my travel. So I'm going to go to this one area and request these things, right? So once we've got the app onboarded, we do automatically build basically a simple form. And there's nothing special behind these forms. It's just really to provide a demo. But once we've got it there, we can very easily, copy these and add, fields relative to each one of those services, like location of travel for this one, and the hire car might be sort of type of car, so on and so forth. So where this ends up landing, so we're now sort of looking at this kind of agent view, is you're typical for anyone on the call that's seen ServiceNow, a pretty typical case management type approach, right? But the cool thing is, and you'll see this when we build out our example, is we literally, the objective was we wanted something that was ready to start using immediately, right? So this dashboard has already been pre-built. Every single one of these reports has been built with all the relative access set up to the role that's been created for this travel area. We've created a manager dashboard as well. With some more, SLA focused and cost focused. And the cool thing with this example is, and we did this example for one of our customers because travel was one of their big bugbears. And surprisingly, office supplies was the other one, right? As another great example. So what we showed them is, okay, all this travel is going into, I think they had 5 or 6 inboxes managing, domestic, international travel, hire cars, so on and so forth, right? We said, okay, well, very quickly we can get you out of that inbox and onto the platform, right? So immediately you've got a massive uplift in reporting capability and visibility and transparency of that work, right? But we said, well, what we can do, just by adding 2 fields, right? So when we talk about that MVP, enhancement number 1 might be, let's add a total cost field and a cost center field, right? So just by adding those 2 things and getting them out of the inbox, we've already got, albeit somewhat rudimentary, but we've got a view of what's a breakdown of basically travel expenses or travel requests per cost center, right? So you're talking about this kind of quantum leap in capability and transparency of this area of the business in such a very short time, which I think is really, really cool. As well as this view, we also, let me just refresh this because I just logged back in. We've also pre-built, so it's ready to go, agent workspace and a mobile app as well. So, sorry, just waiting for that to refresh. But while I am, I might just bring my mobile phone on here as well. So what we've aimed to do is really maximize that chance of adoption within these teams, right? The last thing that we want is something that they find confusing, something that they find hard to pick up, something that they feel is not as good as working out of Lotus Notes or Outlook, and you start to see the behavior going back or defaulting to what they're used to. So whether they're using the mobile app away from their desk, and they can go in and view all the, somebody needs to go to a London conference, they can jump in and put comments on that, or assign it to somebody while they're away from their desk, or if they're on Agent Workspace, or if they or if they've got or they prefer that back end view, that we've got those dashboards and that we're highlighting the work in a consistent way, so that it's a really easy user experience for them to start to get used to it. So I just need to try and move this little toolbar out of the way. So I might just have a look and see how we're going from, oh, voting closed.
Yeah, we're waiting for you to open it.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Sorry, I didn't realize it had a time.
Yep.
The code might change, but okay, I don't know how to. Not voting closed. I don't
Just
know how
need to, I think, restart it, Ian. If too hard, we could just put it on the chat as well as another.
Yeah, let's just
Yeah.
let's go old fashioned. Put your ideas in the chat. Sorry guys, the word cloud does look cool, but I'm not sure what's happened there, unfortunately. Let me just bring up the chat, see if we've got some ideas coming through.
What is a common enterprise service that could be living in a shared inbox, spreadsheet, or Google form?
Yeah. So I might start it off, and if no more come through, I might use that. So the example I've thrown in there is office supplies, right? Which was an interesting one, but we spoke to a customer, and you know they're a sizable organization, and there's literally no there's no way. So basically somebody emails, and it could be, I need a pen, anything from I need a pen to I need a massive print, you know, mail out, I need something printed into envelopes purchased, you know, address labels put on and sent out, right? So literally no visibility of who was requesting what services, and also who was actually authorized to request what services, and how much any of that was costing across the entire organization, right? So they knew they were spending a lot of money on this broad banner of office supplies, but no way of actually tracking it, right? So I found it fascinating, and love some of those edge use cases. Also spoke to an airport about tracking bird deaths with planes in a thing called Project Bird Strike. So we get some pretty cool use cases, but I might just go with office supplies, right? So what we're going to do now is we've got our use case of, you know, we want to onboard the team that looks after all these office supply requests, right? So everything goes into office.supplies@acme.com, and we want to get the team out of that, and we want to have somewhere for these requests to land. And then the next step after that, I guess, is over time publishing more and more things to that service catalog that we saw before. So day one, it might be ordering, you know, pens and texters and stuff like that, and day two might be the ability to order chairs and desks and you know, printing. You know, what kind of things do we need to know if they're ordering printing? You know, how many, what size, what paper, blah 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 blah, right? So what I'm doing here, office, I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm just defining the parameters of what we're going to build, right? And we've made this in a very scalable way, in that if the organization starts, or our customer's organization starts to see different patterns, then we can template those, right? So there might be option A is case management, and option B might be case management with subtasks, for example, or whatever the use case might be. We see two common ones or three common ones, then those can be templated so that through that qualification stage, you can pick which one you actually go ahead with. So I'm just going to put in the office supplies at acme.com. And what it's going to do is actually build all those rules automatically. So in about 1 or 2 minutes time, once we've got this set up, we could actually take that inbox and point it here, and it's completely ready to go. So it would start actually creating those cases for this team to start managing those office supply requests. And then we're just defining where our shared services portal is, and we are just gonna put in office supplies team. So we can define basically a signature and a email header as well. So I'm just gonna pick my Batman symbol. And then we can also get them to pre-fill some categorization so that we can put that template in there as well. I don't know what's currently in this template, but we'll use it anyway. So we've basically defined this and gone, okay, we're going to get rid of office supplies at acme.com or redirect it to the platform. So we need an app to do this, and we're going to click build. So now we're all building this as a team. So this is a personal dev instance, so it won't be particularly fast, but I think probably within about a minute, we should have everything built. So what this is doing is actually going and creating a scoped application. So it's an application that is within its own area on the platform. So it's not having any impact on upgradability on the platform, and it's not being influenced by changes within other areas of the platform. And also this team would then have that creative control to go on that continuous improvement journey and make their own changes. So it's building all those tables, all the access controls, all the rules to ingest those emails and create those tickets, all those reports and everything that we saw. It's gone and built the mobile app. It's gone and built the agent workspace. There's a lot of stuff that it's gone and done. And all that stuff that it's just done in 1 minute would take somebody circa 15 to 20 days to build if you were to put a developer on a desk to start building it out, right? So now we actually have an area, the office supplies application, ready to go with all those sort of same components that you would have seen with the travel management application before. So just to open up a couple of bits and pieces. Agent workspace taking a little bit. So, you can see we've taken an approach of like, what are the common things that a team would want to see? They want to know about high priority work, unassigned work, overdue work, stuff that's not being touched in 7 days or 30 days. And the idea here is that it gives them a starting point. This will change over time. This will evolve. Or they might be like, well, 7 days is too long. We need to know if it hasn't been updated in 2 days, for example. But rather than building all these reports, we can just go in and change the 7 to a 2. So it's a far quicker activity, right? Whereas we've got this accelerated starting point. You can see we've got our agent workspace there, again, highlighting the same types of work, right? How many high priority, unassigned, so on and so forth. And then the list of those office supply requests, of which there's none in there yet, right? But as soon as we create one, and we'll just make it a high priority, pen order, some pens. I don't know what the categories, categories are AP related, but let's just pretend that they're based on office supplies. So what you saw there was just our basic form, which we can very easily just publish to the portal. But the idea really is to start defining, what things are needed on what forms, so that rather than getting emails and going, okay, well, to order pens, you need to tell me what color you want and how many and blah, 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 blah. You can ask the right questions up front through that shared services portal and make sure the team is getting the right information that they need to start with to fulfill that request first time. And we've already got things like SLAs and whatnot that the App Factory's gone and built automatically, right? And again, rather than sitting with a team that's never needed to worry about this before and say, what do you want? We've got a starting point of, okay, well, we've got a 1 hour response for a P1, for example, but you guys might want to make that 4 hours or a day or whatever. Again, we can just go in and change the 1 hour to a 4 or an 8, rather than building all the SLAs, all the rules around when it starts and pauses and stops, all the heavy lifting's done. It's just about going, well, here's a starting point SLAs. Do you want to just start with it and see how you go? Or we can make some minor updates to it. Yeah, and then obviously there's a hell of a lot of detail detail of all the components that have been sort of built in the back end. Yeah, sort of don't want to bore people to death going into a lot of that, but hopefully that was pretty, I think it's pretty cool. Like we've all just built an office supply case management app. We've killed another inbox in the world. Yeah, we think it's pretty exciting. So definitely, you know, I've gone through quite a lot and sort of spoken at people. Really want to see if anybody has any questions, right?
There's one question on the chat. You probably don't see it, Ian, but it's something to do with a question on licensing. So
Yep.
if we don't have, what sort of licensing is required if we don't have it in ServiceNow? What sort of ServiceNow license do we need?
Yeah, perfect. Good question. So this requires App Engine licensing. And some customers we found actually already have some App Engine licensing and weren't aware that they already had it. And then apart from that, we've seen a few different flavors of App Engine licensing depending on you know, people's licensing agreement and how much they consume and whatnot. What I will say though is we're doing this in conjunction with so we've got somewhat of a, I don't know if a cohort is the right word, but we're connected in with a gentleman by the name of Dom Wee, who heads up the App Engine area of ServiceNow, and then another guy, Rob Palmer in the US, who's heavily involved, and they're really keen on working with us to find the best model that works for customers. So we can certainly help customers navigate that to go, okay, well, if you've got, you know, 500 different functions to bring on, or, you know, you've got 6 to bring on, or, you know, you've got a high number of fulfillers, or whatever the dimensions are, we can definitely assist in providing guidance around how we could come up with something that would best suit it, right? And ServiceNow are really receptive to hearing customer feedback and finding something that works really well. So what we're hoping and what we're working on at the moment is basically making it really easy for customers to go, okay, if I've got 5, then it's 5 times X amount, or 6 times X amount, or 7 times X amount, just so it's super simple and it doesn't prevent a complex barrier to customers moving forward. Yeah, definitely happy to have a chat with anyone that wants to explore it further and offer any guidance there. I know that didn't completely answer the question, but App Engine licensing is essentially what you need, and we can help work with you and ServiceNow to get the right package.
Cool. That's the only question in the chat, so we can open it up to the group in case there's more they want to see clarification for.
Keen if anybody's got any feedback as well, right? So it's you know, there's a lot to take in the sort of last 45 minutes, right? And it is a big concept to think about, but we found it's just, I haven't spoken to one of our customers yet where it hasn't resonated, right? I think there's been one customer that loved the idea, but we sort of had a look and they really only had one inbox that everything was going into. So we're probably taking a bit of a different approach with them, but I'm yet to find an organization that's not struggling with shared inboxes and SharePoint forms and whatnot everywhere. So we'd love feedback if anyone is keen to jump in, if they think it's relevant, good, bad, ugly. Oh. No. Norton.
Hi, Ian.
Hey,
It's
is that Callum?
Callum Watson here. Yeah, I'll give some feedback. I think this is really good. This is something I've been looking and thinking about myself for many years, actually. And only until recently, you mentioned talking about the app engine licensing. App engine licensing in the past was the big limitation for us for doing something like this. But that is now different.
Yes.
My understanding. So ServiceNow sort of woke up and realized that it was putting a limitation on all their customers. But yeah, I can see this is really efficient, like you said, to get to that most viable product, to get people up and going, get their mindset and working habits changed, and then just get them on that roadmap, I guess, of just continuous improvement. And in a relatively cost-effective way, I think, from what I can see and my knowledge.
Yeah. I think to Callum's point, this has been an idea and a passion of mine for a good few years, and I've worked with customers before to do it manually and through automation. But when the licensing was like an all user type approach, it didn't make this viable to actually put out to market, essentially. So now the licensing has sort of moved more towards your traditional kind of fulfiller requester model. But also what I will say is, depending on that shape and size, we're connected in with the right people to have the right conversations around, there might be some use cases where that model might not work for particular customers, but we've got the relationships with the people that actually define what licensing can be sold. So we definitely keen on getting that feedback and having the conversations and seeing what works best to help customers out. Anyone else? Anybody that doesn't think it actually would help them out? Also keen to hear that, and I guess understand why as well.
Ian, it's Jane Shee here. I think I'm your use case with the giant overloaded inbox.
How are you, Jane?
I'm well, thanks, Star. So I'm just a bit interested, and I might have missed in your demo. When you showed your initial demo, you showed the end user kind of requesting, the option of different travel. So when you've created your office supplies case, that's automatically going to be added to the service catalog for your kind of customer base that's set up in your instance already?
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? So let's add it in there now. So this is a different instance. So the portal won't look shiny like the other one. Let me just sorry, jumping around a little bit, but so it won't automatically be there because we need to put it in some sort of category, right? So to give you an idea of what we would do at this point is it would have created a super basic form, right? Let's just bring that up. New office supplies request, right? Which to me, I'm like we've got to create something as a starting point, right? And I don't want it to ever be a new office supplies request, because you ultimately want to start publishing services there, right? But the point is we can actually just do a copy of this, right? So I'll just quickly copy it, and let's call this I don't know, printing I don't know, printing run. Struggling. It's Friday, brain's dead. So use this form to request. Oh, here we go. Let's go business cards. It's a good one to request new business cards to be printed, right? And then we can go, well, as part of this, we need, sorry, let me just save it. So all the general stuff that you want to know about who it is and that kind of stuff is already there. You can remove it if you don't need it for the business card one. But what we'll do is we'll add one simple field. I don't know, let's call it, if this ever comes up, we'll add job title, right? Which I know you can just get automatically from who it is, but just go with me. So we'll put in job title, and we'll make it mandatory, and I'll put it right after title. So quite quickly, we've made a copy of the form that App Factory built. We've added an extra field that we know is critical for people ordering business cards. And then let me just find some random category that we can throw it in. So then we could create an office. Well, there we go. So I'll chuck it in office services there. Categories and catalog. So we'll just add it to, I think it's that one. And the reason why we've got to add it to the catalog and a category is because, like, we're not going to know where it's meant to sit, right?
Yeah.
It's called services, or you know what? Let's just put it in both of those and try our luck. So we've made a copy, renamed it, added a field that we needed, and then chucked it in a category. So if we refresh this guy, there we go, business cards. Now there'd be more finessing of the form and whatnot, obviously, right? But job title in, and we probably change up the short description and whatnot, but so that's now been submitted. So if we go back to our office supplies dashboard, we've got 2 unassigned in there. So one of them is going to be the one I created before, and then there's our request for business cards there, right?
Yep.
So what's really cool about that is, in a couple of minutes, we've got, you know, a form there on the portal for people to be able to request business cards. So we've moved completely away from somebody emailing officesupplies@acme.com to go, I need my business cards. And then, you know, that back and forth, right? Well, yeah, there's no signature on your email. What's your job title? What's your latest contact details? Have you got your manager's approval, or what's your cost center for the expenditure? So we would take that form and go, well, cost center is important because they're going to back charge it. They need to, you know, we need to make them aware on the form it's going to go to their manager for approval. You can use that form to drive an approval request to their manager so that they're approving it, you know, in platform, right? And I guess because we've already got such a usable starting point, it's really quite easy to just then start copying this out and then populating those services really quickly to get all the most common stuff. And you don't have to do that day one, right? You might put 2 or 3 forms out a month and build out that service catalog and refine those forms. And oh shit, if we had this field on there, that would be so helpful, because then we could report on it this way. Or you know, an extra approval if it's over a certain amount, if they're spending 10 grand on office supplies or something, for example, right?
Yep. Quick.
Essentially, oh, sorry, carry on, Jane.
Sorry, and this is probably well beyond the scope of today's discussion, so shut me down if
Never.
rather go to the rest of the group. But so we're currently using our portal for one kind of external cohort of people. So our giant inbox issue is another whole cohort of people. So we would kind of need to stand up a different portal. Is that kind of, you know, going to be a major undertaking, or maybe that's something for if Michael's on the call?
No, it's pretty straightforward, Jane. I mean, it's how long's a piece of string. You can get into the branding of it, and I've seen people take 6 weeks to decide on a banner image. But knowing how you guys work, this is basically what's there out of the box. So it's kind of like, it's usable, right? It
might be relevant to ask for the wider group, because I assume most of your customers on the call have their portal kind of facing externally, but your use cases are kind of facing internally. So you might need another portal to kind of get the best use out of this. So
yeah, it's a great point. So most of our customers will have, generally there's a customer portal and an internal portal. So anything that anybody within the organization is requesting, there's the internal, I don't know, call it your intranet type portal. And then anything that is external to the organization then goes on the customer portal. And it's an easy delineation, because, you know, look, if I put something there, my customers are going to see it. If you try and do it all in one, you can put all the controls around who can see what and what not. But you know, if you forget that, you can inadvertently expose something to your customers. So that's generally how our clients approach it, is the internal kind of shared services portal, and then you have one for your customers.
We have 3 minutes. Time check there, Ian.
Yeah. Any final questions? Otherwise, I guess, you know, after this session, I know Nicole's going to send out a follow-up email, you know, thanking you for coming by. Get in touch with us if you want to have a chat. Yeah, more than happy to line up a time to have a one-on-one chat. If you've got, you know, other questions, or, you know, you've got questions you want to ask specifically in context with, you know, your organization or your challenges. If you're like, I think it applies to this, but, you know, wouldn't mind bouncing, you know, picking my brain, reach out and let me know. Otherwise, thank you everyone for attending. Hopefully got value out of the session.
Thanks, Ian. That was a good one. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it.